Morning, guys, in Mathew 5, verses 21 to 26, carrying on with this theme of loving your brother and just how that comes from the heart. And that's the New Testament command. Love the Lord your God with all your heart and all your soul and your mind, and love your neighbor as you love yourself. And on those two commands hangs the whole of the law. And so the whole law is fulfilled in this aspect of love. In 1 John 4:20 it says, if a man says, I love God, and hateth his brother, he is a liar. For he that loveth not his brother whom he has seen, how can he love God whom he has not seen? And so if you say that you love God this morning, you have to have a love for your brother. That's so important, that we love one another. And how does that love look? So back to Mathew 5:21, you have heard that the ancients were told, you shall not commit murder. And that's obvious, that's one of the 10 commandments. You shall not commit murder. So how does that look like under the new covenant, when we have a new heart and we're now responding in love? And whoever commits murder shall be liable of the court. But I say to you, verse 22, that everyone who is angry with his brother shall be guilty before the court. And so Jesus is saying, under the new covenant, it's all about the heart change. It's not just about the physical act of adultery or murder. But if you are angry, if there's something in your heart with an anger, with an issue of resentment towards your brother, that's where the sin is happening. And whoever says to his brother, you good for nothing, or it's a Hebrew word, raka, which means, Aramaic word, which means empty-headed or worthless. If you saying these things, this is what's a reflection of what your heart, your mouth speaks what's on your heart. And that's showing that your heart is wrong with your brother. And therefore the sin has already been committed in the heart. But if you say you're good for nothing, you'll be guilty between the Supreme Court. And whoever says you fool shall be guilty enough to go into the fiery hell. You're already made, if you're looking at a woman lustfully, you've already committed adultery in the heart. If you're already saying these things, you've already got that anger in the heart. So looking at, jumping to Matthew 12, he challenges the Pharisees on this very aspect of the heart. In 34 he says, O generation of vipers, how can you be evil, speak good things? For out of the abundance of the heart the mouth speaks. So as we speak, it's a reflection of what's actually going on inside our hearts, and that sin inside. Verse 35, a good man out of the good treasure of the heart bringeth forth good things, and an evil man out of the evil treasure bring forth evil things. But I say to you, every idle word that men shall speak, they shall give account, therefore, on the day of judgment. And that's why if you say raka, you're going to give account for those words you said against other people. 37, for by the words thou shalt be justified, and by the words thou shalt be condemned. By your very words you'll be condemned, not just the actions of murdering someone. And so we look at our heart, and therefore we've got to respond with love and forgiveness. And it's got to be an immediate response. When we notice these things, we take these thoughts captive. We check our own hearts. We don't wait. We must deal with these issues straight away when we have that feeling of anger or resentment coming up. It's so important that we cannot continue in any form of worship or going to church or doing these good things without dealing with these issues, because it's all about love and relationships and dealing with people. You can't go to church and yet you've got a problem with your brother at church. So Matthew 5:23 it says, therefore, if you are presenting your offering at the altar, that's an act of giving to the Lord, going through the motions, you're going to the church, you're in the service, now you're offering your altar. It says, and there remember that your brother has something against you. You suddenly remember, oh, hang, this person's got a problem with me. If God brings that to mind, you deal with that thing immediately. You're in your bed at night and you suddenly realize, hey, this person's got a problem with me, or I've got a problem with that person. So it doesn't have to be just one way. You deal with the thing straight away. You don't wait for the person to come and say sorry, or don't wait for a right situation. There's an immediate command of going. 24, leave your offering therefore before the altar and go. And so the command is always go and be reconciled. And that's regardless of whether that you've got an issue with that brother or that brother's got an issue with you. You must go. First be reconciled to your brother, and then come present your offering. And that same principle is in the breaking of bread or communion services, where we don't take or partake of that breaking of bread without first sorting out our issues with our brothers. So again, just showing the importance of relationships with the heart and with the issues. Verse 25, it says, make friends quickly. So you go, you make friends quickly. You come to terms with the issue and your opponent at law while you're with him on the way. So the guy who's got a problem, he wants to take you to law so that your opponent may not hand you over to the judge and the judge to the officer, and that you'll be thrown into prison. So therefore also the consequences of not dealing with these things means they'll start costing us money. It gets worse. The anger gets worse, and they end up trying to take more and more. Instead of dealing with the thing straight away, it becomes a bigger and bigger problem. Verse 26 of Matthew 5, truly I say to you, you will not come out of there until you've paid the last cent. And so reconciliation takes priority over everything else, our work and things that we want to do, in even going to church. Ephesians 4:26, be angry and do not sin. We can have a righteous anger, but there's our anger that very quickly leads to sin, because it leads to resentment and unforgiveness, etc., etc. So don't be angry and do not sin, and do not let the sun go down on your anger. In other words, deal with the anger immediately. Don't go to bed with these things in your heart. Amen.